My parents made me pay rent while funding my siblings' futures. Then I used their own lease against them to stop the exploitation. They told me it was for my own good, a lesson in responsibility. But what I discovered was a calculated betrayal, funded by my own hard-earned money, to benefit my siblings, all while my parents trashed my name behind my back. That's my story, and how I used their own written contract to finally break free. The moment I turned 18, my parents started charging me $750 a month to live at home. This was supposed to teach me responsibility and prepare me for the real world. I was still in high school, working a part-time grocery store job for minimum wage, but they demanded that money on the first of every month. I barely had a dime left after paying them, but I just thought, okay, this is adulting now. I paid every single month through my senior year, but then things started to feel off. 6 months after me, my brother Ethan turned 18. No rent. My parents said he needed to focus on his music and didn't need the stress. His music mostly involved sitting in his room playing video games, occasionally strumming his guitar for 20 minutes. For his birthday, they bought him a new amplifier that cost $1,800. A year later, my sister Sophia turned 18. Also no rent. She was apparently preoccupied with her influencer career. She had 350 TikTok followers, posted about once a week, and for her content creation, my parents bought her a ring light and a brand new phone. Meanwhile, I had graduated, was working full-time, attending community college at night, and still shelling out $750 a month. When I finally asked my mom why only I paid rent, she just smiled and said, "You're the responsible one, honey. You can handle it. Your siblings need more encouragement to pursue their goals." So I kept paying. Ethan's musical career consisted of one open mic night where he forgot the lyrics. Sophia's influencer career peaked at about 500 followers, even after my parents paid for professional photo shoots. Then, the kicker, my parents raised my rent to $950. Their reasoning? Rising costs, and you work full-time now, you can afford it. At this point, Ethan, at 20, had never worked a day in his life. Sophia worked one shift a week at a boutique just for the employee discount, and I was paying more than double what some people pay for their own apartments. The real gut punch came when I overheard my parents discussing their finances. They were taking my rent money and depositing it directly into savings accounts for Ethan and Sophia. My rent was literally funding my siblings' futures, while I couldn't save a single dime. They called them education funds, even though Ethan dropped out of community college after one semester, and Sophia never even applied. I was the one attending night classes, paying my own tuition. When I finally confronted them, they just doubled down. Ethan and Sophia aren't as capable as you, sweetie. They need the financial cushion more. You're smart enough to do it on your own. But it got worse. I found out they'd been telling everyone, our extended family, their friends, that I was living at home rent-free, mooching off of them. They were making themselves look like saints, supporting their adult child, all while I was paying them $950 a month. My own aunt would make passive-aggressive comments at family dinners about me needing to mature and support myself, and my parents would just nod along, never correcting her. The humiliation was crushing. That's when I decided to play their game. I went to them, completely straight-faced, and said, "You know what? You're right. I need more responsibilities. I want to build my credit, so I'd like a formal lease agreement." Their eyes lit up. They thought this was peak adulting. They were so proud they drafted an official-looking lease with all the terms and conditions, even took a photo of me signing it to show off their responsible parenting. What they didn't realize, in our state, once you sign a lease, you have tenant rights, and they had just broken about 15 of them. No proper notice for rent increases, no payment receipt system, no maintenance agreements, no security deposit documentation. They were constantly entering my room without my knowledge, using my bathroom when theirs was occupied, taking food I purchased without permission. All violations. I started documenting everything. Every time my mother borrowed something from my room without asking. Every time my father used my laptop without permission. Every time they gave Ethan or Sophia money and then instructed me to pay more. Their precious lease specified quiet enjoyment of the premises. How could I enjoy quiet when Ethan was practicing his guitar badly at midnight, directly above my room? The lease also specified access to common areas. Good luck with that when Sophia's photography equipment was constantly spread across the living room, making it impossible to move. I sent them formal, written complaints for each violation. They just laughed at first, thinking I was being dramatic. Then I stopped paying rent. I told them I was withholding it due to unresolved lease violations, as was my legal right as a tenant. They absolutely lost their minds, demanding the cash. I calmly offered to pay if they resolved the violations. We don't have to fix anything in our own home, my dad yelled. Cool, I said. Then I don't have to pay. They tried to kick me out. That's when I pulled out the lease they had written. I explained they'd have to formally evict me, which would take months. They'd have to go to court and explain why they were evicting one child while two others remained free. They'd have to inform a judge about the savings accounts funded by my rent. They'd have to admit they'd been lying to everyone about me living there for free. The court records would be public. Everyone would know. My mother's face went white. She immediately offered to reduce my rent back to $750. Zero, I countered, just like my siblings. My father's face turned bright red. He started screaming that I was being disrespectful, ungrateful. My mother jumped in, saying they'd given me a roof over my head and this was how I repaid them, threatening legal action like a stranger. She clutched her chest dramatically. My heart was pounding, but I kept my voice steady. I wasn't threatening anyone. I just wanted the same treatment Ethan and Sophia received. $0 per month. My dad stormed out. My mom followed, casting me a heartbroken glare. I stood alone in the kitchen, clutching my printed documentation of every lease violation. The papers felt heavy, but also strangely empowering. That night, I lay in bed, unable to do homework, listening to my parents argue loudly. The walls were thin. My mom wanted to let me stay rent-free to avoid problems. My dad insisted it would be a reward for bad behavior. He yelled something about not being manipulated by their own daughter. It went on for over an hour. The next morning, the kitchen was silent, thick with tension. My parents were already eating cereal, not speaking. Ethan walked in, rubbing his eyes, and asked what was going on. I poured myself coffee and, with my parents sitting there stone-faced, explained everything. The years of rent, the lease violations, the savings accounts I funded. Ethan actually laughed. You're overreacting about a few $100, he said, grabbing a bowl. Everyone pays rent when they're adults. I pointed out that he didn't pay rent. He just shrugged. It's different. I'm focused on my music. I asked when he'd last practiced. He didn't answer. Sophia came downstairs, phone in hand. She'd clearly overheard. You're so selfish, she whined, making everything about you when we're just trying to pursue our dreams. I looked her dead in the eye and said, my rent money is literally funding your dreams, Sophia. I told her about the savings account. Her mouth opened, but nothing came out. She looked at our parents, expecting them to deny it. My mother stared intently at her cereal. My father made a show of slamming his dishes into the sink. Sophia's face went pale. She sat down, ignoring the food. That evening, my parents summoned me to the living room. They sat stiffly on the couch. My father cleared his throat. We've discussed it. We have a counteroffer. As a compromise, we'll reduce your rent to $350 a month. My mom nodded. More than fair. I just sat there. My compromise is $0, I said, just like my siblings. My father started to interrupt, but I kept going. Or, if you prefer, we can let a judge decide what's fair. I pulled out my phone and showed them photos. The lease they wrote, my payment records, the documented violations. My mom went white. My dad stood up, shaking. "I'm kicking you out immediately," he shouted. I stayed seated. "That's illegal without proper eviction proceedings," I calmly explained. "You'd have to file paperwork, wait for a hearing, and explain to a judge why you're evicting one child while two others live here free." My mother's eyes widened. She yanked my father back down. He was breathing heavily like he'd run a marathon. The silence was deafening. They left the room without another word. The next day at work, my coworker Katie saw how stressed I was. I just spilled everything. The rent, my siblings, the savings accounts, the lease violations. Katie's eyes were huge. "I can't believe your parents would do that," she kept saying. She pulled out her phone. "My husband, Barry, works in property management. He knows all about tenant rights. You have to talk to him." I was hesitant, but Katie wouldn't take no for an answer. Barry wanted to meet. That weekend, I met Barry at a coffee shop. He was a kind, professional man in his 40s. I laid out my folder, filled with the lease and all my documentation. He read everything carefully, taking notes. After 20 minutes, he looked up. "Your parents," he said, "have violated multiple tenant rights." He walked me through every specific breach. No notice for the rent increase, no receipt system, no security deposit documentation despite the lease mentioning it, the unauthorized entries. "You have a strong legal case," he confirmed. "Most judges frown upon parents financially exploiting their adult children." He even gave me the name of a tenant rights attorney he knew, Crystal Winers, who sometimes offered free consultations to young people dealing with family landlord issues. I left feeling validated, armed, and not crazy. Barry even offered to testify as an expert witness if needed. I called Crystal. She had an opening Thursday afternoon. I took it, leaving work early. Her office was modest, but she was sharp. Crystal Winters. Direct eye contact, firm handshake. She listened to my entire story without interrupting, scribbling notes. "I've seen cases like yours before," she said. "Parents exploit their adult children all the time, convincing themselves it's for the kids' benefit." She confirmed the lease gave me incredible legal protection. Her paralegal, Luke, meticulously photographed every single page of my documentation. Crystal explained they needed everything for court. "I'll write a letter to your parents," she said, explaining their violations and your rights. "The letter will state you'll resume paying rent once all violations are resolved, and you're given the same terms as your siblings. $0 per month." Relief washed over me. Finally, a professional was on my side. She'd mail it certified, requiring their signature. "Don't be surprised if they react negatively," she warned, "and document any threats or harassment." When I asked about payment, she waved it off. "Don't worry about it. I hate seeing parents take advantage of their children." The letter arrived on a Wednesday. My phone started blowing up with calls from my father, then my mother. I let them all go to voicemail. My dad's messages were furious. "How dare you get lawyers involved in family business?" My mom's were tearful. "You're ruining everything." When I got home, my dad was waiting. He started yelling the moment I walked in. "How dare you threaten us in our own home?" My mom was sobbing on the couch. I stayed calm. "I'm not threatening anyone. I'm just asking for the same treatment Ethan and Sophia receive." My dad's face turned beet red. "Oh, you want to play legal games," he snarled. "Fine. Maybe Ethan and Sophia should start paying rent too." He yelled for them to come downstairs. Ethan stumbled down, looking bewildered. Sophia followed, phone still in hand. "My father announced, starting next month, you both will pay $350 in rent." Ethan's jaw dropped. "I can't afford that," he stammered. My dad shot back. "Exactly the point. If she doesn't get a free ride, nobody does." Sophia burst into tears. "I'm building my career. I can't pay rent." My father didn't flinch. "Figure it out." Ethan looked at me like it was all my fault, but I just stared back. For the first time, he had to think about money, and it was etched on his face. He asked if our dad was serious. Completely, my father stated. Everyone pays or nobody pays. My mother just kept crying. Ethan and Sophia stomped back upstairs. The next day, Sophia posted a sad TikTok with text about toxic family members and misunderstood dreams. It got maybe 30 views. Katie showed it to me, rolling her eyes. That evening, my mother shared it on Facebook with a dramatic caption about family struggles. My aunt commented, "Some children just don't appreciate their parents' sacrifices." No one knew the truth. They all thought I was the problem, but I was done hiding. Saturday morning, my aunt called me directly. She immediately launched into how selfish I was. I interrupted her. "Aunt, do you know I've been paying $950 a month in rent since I was 18? The line went silent. I told her the whole story. My rent, Ethan and Sophia paying nothing, my parents putting my money into their savings accounts, and how they told everyone I lived there for free. After a long pause, my aunt said, "I had no idea." She apologized profusely for judging me, for the comments she'd made. They always made it seem like you were taking advantage. She believed me. Within an hour, my phone was blowing up. Texts from uncles, cousins, even my grandmother. "Are you really paying rent? Why didn't your parents mention this?" I gave them the same facts. $950 a month since 18. Ethan and Sophia paid nothing. My money went to their savings and my parents lied about it. The responses poured in. "That's not right. I always wondered why they acted like you were lazy when you worked so hard. I need to talk to your mother." By dinner, my phone was buzzing nonstop. My parents' phones must have been even worse. I heard my mother on the phone in the kitchen, her voice getting louder with each call, insisting it was private family business. At one point, my father snatched the phone, yelling that I was intentionally making them look bad. I just stayed in my room, door locked, letting them deal with the mess their lies had created. The next morning, my mom, looking utterly defeated, came to my door. She said my father wanted to make an offer. Downstairs, he sat with a calculator. "We'll refund 6 months of rent," he said. $5,200 as a gesture of good faith. "In exchange, you agree to stop discussing family finances with relatives." I snapped a photo of the papers and texted it to Crystal. She called back within 20 minutes, sharp. "Don't accept anything without proper legal documentation. This is an attempt to buy your silence and control the narrative while admitting no wrongdoing. Reject it. I'll handle the negotiations." 2 days later, my father emailed me a new document, the $5,200 refund, but I'd have to agree to pay $350 a month from now on and sign a document explicitly forbidding me from discussing family finances with anyone outside our immediate family. It was all about protecting family privacy. I forwarded it to Crystal. That evening, she called, annoyed. "They're still trying to control you. Do you want me to respond?" "Yes. I'll send them a letter outlining our terms. They can accept it, or we'll see them in housing court." Crystal's letter hit their house 3 days later. My father called, screaming that my lawyer was threatening them and making unreasonable demands. "What demands?" I asked. "She wants a full year's refund and no future rent," he yelled. "Seems fair," I said. "That's what Ethan and Sophia received." He called me ridiculous and hung up. My parents didn't speak to me at dinner that night. Ethan asked what was wrong, and my mom just said it was between them and me. Sophia scrolled her phone, oblivious. The silence was heavy. I ate my food, then retreated to my room. For days passed with almost no communication. Then my father showed up at my work during my afternoon shift. He started yelling before he even reached me. "We need to talk about this lawyer situation like adults." I told him Crystal was handling everything. All communication goes through her. He raised his voice. I'm your father. I have the right to speak to you. Customers started staring. My manager came out. My father kept shouting about me, tearing the family apart over money. My manager stepped between us and asked him to leave. He looked at me, utterly betrayed, then turned and walked away. My manager sent me on an early break. That evening, Katie called. Barry wanted to know if I needed a place to stay. If things get worse, our guest room is open. A release of tension I didn't even know I was holding flooded me. Having a place to go, a safe place, made everything less terrifying. The offer was always valid. Crystal set a deadline, 1 week from her letter. On day 5, my mother came to my room. We're consulting our own lawyer, she said, her voice tight. Fighting this in court would be expensive and embarrassing for everyone. What would it take for you to drop everything? I simply reiterated Crystal's terms. My siblings pay no rent, and I get a full refund for the past year. My mom's face tightened even further. $10,200, she whispered. That's what I paid you, I confirmed. She left without another word. Day 6 passed in silence. On day 7, my father knocked on my door before I left for work. We've agreed to Crystal's terms, he said, his voice flat. We'll refund you for the entire year, and you can live here rent-free, just like Ethan and Sophia. Is that in writing? I asked. Our lawyer is drafting the agreement, he replied. He nodded, then walked away. I got ready for work. I had won, but it didn't feel like a victory. It felt like something in my family had shattered, possibly beyond repair. The refund check arrived 4 days later. $10,200. I stared at it for a long time before going to a completely different bank, opening my own savings account, and depositing every single dollar. The teller congratulated me on starting to save. Walking out, I checked the balance on the receipt. All the money they had taken from me. Now in an account with my name on it. It felt real. It proved I was right to fight. The atmosphere at home changed completely. My parents stopped talking to me about anything beyond basic chores. Ethan avoided me, holed up in his room. Sophia walked past me as if I were invisible. Family dinners were silent, awkward affairs. My mom would try to start a conversation, but it would fizzle out quickly. I'd eat my food and escape back to my room. The house was cold, not just in temperature. A few weeks later, my mom came to my room again. She started talking about household expenses, how they really needed my rent money to keep things running. I looked at her. Mom, you and Dad were putting my rent into savings accounts for Ethan and Sophia. If you needed it for household expenses, why was it in their accounts? Her face turned beet red. She just stood up and left without a word. Then, at dinner one night, my father cleared his throat. Starting next month, he announced, Ethan and Sophia will each pay $350 in rent. Ethan dropped his fork with a clatter. That's not fair. I can't afford it. My father held up a hand. Stop talking. If she doesn't get a free ride, nobody does. Sophia's mouth hung open, but she stayed silent. I kept eating. Ethan pushed his chair back and stomped upstairs. Sophia followed. My parents sat in silence as I finished my meal. The following week, Ethan was suddenly extremely busy. He printed his resume, applied for jobs online and at the mall. Within 5 days, he had an interview at a downtown music store. 2 days later, he announced he'd gotten the job. For days a week, helping customers, organizing inventory. My father just nodded. Ethan looked at me across the table, but I just ate my food. Funny how quickly he could find work when he needed it. For 2 years, he'd claimed no one was hiring and he needed to focus on his music. Turns out, jobs were there all along. Sophia took a different approach. She quit her boutique job, telling my parents she couldn't afford rent while pursuing her influencer career. She needed all her time for content creation. My mom looked at my dad, who just shook his head. Sophia, he said, you have 2 options. Pay $350 a month, or find another place to live. Her eyes widened and she burst into tears. You're ruining my dreams. You're so unfair. My father's expression didn't change. You have until the end of the week to decide. Sophia ran upstairs, her door slamming. The next day, she was on her laptop applying for jobs. Within 5 days, she was hired at a coffee shop near the mall. Even with no rent, living at home felt wrong. The air was heavy. No one looked at each other at meals. I started seriously considering getting my own place. I texted Barry. Could he help me figure out what I could afford? What to look for in a lease? He invited me to his office that weekend. Saturday morning, I sat at his large desk, surrounded by folders. For an hour, he walked me through my finances, budgeting, security deposits, utility costs. He looked up apartment listings, explaining lease terms. By the end, I had a list of 5 places and felt like I knew what I was doing. That week, my community college professor, Annie, stopped me after class. My assignments were improving. I seemed more focused. I told her about the housing situation, how resolving it had freed up mental space. She nodded. Stress affects everything, she said. I'm proud of how you handled it. It was so nice to have someone acknowledge the positive changes. I spent the next 2 weeks apartment hunting. Most were either too expensive or in sketchy areas. Then I found it, a small studio apartment on the 3rd floor of an old building. Tiny kitchen, tiny bathroom, but a surprisingly spacious main room. The landlord said $900 a month, all utilities included. I did the math. This was less than the $950 my parents had been charging me. I'd pay less to live on my own than I did in their house. The irony was not lost on me. I applied that day and was approved 5 days later. When I told my mom I was moving out, her face fell. She expressed genuine sadness, asking if we could mend our relationship. I told her honestly that I needed time. My father, arm around her, said nothing, jaw clenched. I started packing immediately. The week before I moved, Ethan knocked on my door. Can I help you move? He asked. I was surprised, but agreed. On moving day, he showed up, and we made 3 trips back and forth, loading boxes and furniture. On the last trip, he looked at me. I had no idea how unfair things were until I had to get a job myself, he admitted. He apologized for laughing at me. I was living in a bubble, and Mom and Dad let me stay there. I told him I appreciated it. We hugged goodbye. Sophia never apologized, but she did stop making vague social media complaints about me. Katie showed me she deleted all those posts. Sophia got her first real paycheck from the coffee shop a week after I moved out and posted a picture. Honest work and earning your own way. She was now working 4 days a week, less concerned with internet fame. She even started talking about community college. As my mother put it, reality had struck both of your siblings, and they're dealing with it. Moving into my studio felt different from day one. I picked out a secondhand couch, put it by the window. The kitchen had just enough space for a small table and 2 chairs, and I bought real dishes, not paper plates, so there'd be no arguments about who would wash. The posters I'd kept rolled up for years because Sophia said they were ugly and my mom would take them down, now on my walls. No one could say anything. I cooked actual meals, ate when I wanted. No Ethan stealing food. No Dad helping himself to leftovers. My belongings stayed where I put them. My shampoo stayed in my shower. My snacks remained in my cabinet. Nobody borrowed my laptop, towel, or phone charger. The level of freedom exceeded all my expectations. A week after I moved in, Crystal called. She was closing my case. She'd never charged me a dime. Parents who exploit their children financially make me very angry, she said. I was happy to help you stand up for yourself. I tried to offer her something, but she refused. Use the money for your future instead. I thanked her profusely. Katie and I became even closer. We'd get coffee, shop, watch movies at her place. Having a genuine friend who knew my entire story and still supported me meant more than words could say. She never judged me, just listened, and always said I deserved better. After 3 months in my new apartment, I had a routine that felt stable for the first time in years. I worked, went to class, came home to my own space, and saved money every month because I wasn't paying rent to my parents. Then a text from my mother, "Can we meet for coffee?" I stared at the message. Part of me wondered if she was truly ready to admit her wrongs, or if this was another guilt trip. I agreed to meet her near campus. I arrived first, ordered my coffee. My mom arrived 10 minutes later, looking tired older. She ordered tea. We sat in a corner. She started talking, expressing genuine regret for the favoritism and financial exploitation. She admitted she'd convinced herself I was stronger and more capable than Ethan and Sophia, so it was okay to treat me differently. But now, she realized how wrong she was, how much damage it had caused. She admitted she'd used my supposed strength as an excuse to take advantage of me while coddling my siblings. Hearing her say those words, aloud, made something tight in my chest finally loosen. "I appreciate your apology," I told her, "but rebuilding trust will take time." She nodded. "I understand. I'll wait as long as you need." 2 days after that, my father sent me an email. Shorter, stiffer than my mother's apology, but he admitted he was wrong to charge me rent while letting Ethan and Sophia live free. He apologized for not treating me fairly and hoped we could improve our relationship. It felt awkward, like he'd struggled with every word, but I appreciated the effort. I responded briefly, thanking him. Over the next few months, I started meeting my parents for dinner every couple of weeks. We kept it neutral. Work, school, weather. They were slowly learning to treat me as an independent adult, not a source of income or a problem to be solved. My mother stopped trying to give me advice on everything. My father stopped acting like I owed him for raising me. The dynamic had changed. It felt more balanced. Ethan and I actually became closer. He texted more, and we'd grab lunch after his shifts. He reiterated how unfair things had been, apologized again for laughing. He was still at the music store, now taking guitar lessons seriously. He seemed to genuinely enjoy having structure. Sophia, too, was quietly thriving at the coffee shop, and she did enroll in community college the following semester. A year after moving into my studio apartment, I was performing better than ever. My grades were strong. I was researching four-year universities for transfer. The $10,200 refund, combined with saving money every month, had given me a solid financial foundation. I had nearly $8,000 in savings and a clear plan for the future. My relationship with my family was better now, built on mutual respect rather than obligation and exploitation. Standing up for myself had been terrifying, but it taught everyone in my family that fair treatment wasn't negotiable. I was worthy of the same consideration as anyone else, and I would never accept anything less.